Hello everyone, welcome to my Last of Us Part 2, Survivor difficulty, no damage, no crafting, no upgrades, no safes, no listen mode walkthrough, and this is Seattle Day 3 for Abby's section. And this is a pretty interesting video, because I actually played through certain parts of this chapter again, because I wasn't satisfied with my original attempt. And the part where it starts from is from the brewery area after you reunite with Lev. So, originally, I had a lot of trouble doing all the sections after you reunite with Lev, but on this recording, I didn't have any trouble whatsoever, and I managed to do all of the encounters after you reunite with Lev on the first try. And I actually learned some new things. So, I mentioned before in my first video for this walkthrough that there are parts of this game that are impossible to do no damage, and they're just there for cinematic purposes, and you're not supposed to think anything of them. Well, it turns out, the horse section, where you're riding through Haven, and you're having to take shots at any enemies coming towards you, you can do it without taking any damage, and I was able to do it on this recording, which was interesting. Of course, doing that section no damage, it requires a tremendous amount of accuracy. If you miss one of your shots, you'll always take a hit. You have to be so quick on your shots, and you have to make sure every single shot hits an enemy, otherwise you're just gonna get hit. It's very easy to mess up. And that's what makes it very tricky. But I'll go into more detail about that section when I get to it. Right now, we're just trying to make our way over to the marina, and we're going to be encountering Tommy. And for some unknown reason, this rather lengthy encounter with Tommy, it's not classed as a main encounter, yet it's one of the harder parts of the game to do no damage, because not only do you have to deal with Tommy constantly shooting you, but you have enemies closing in on you, and they put a lot of pressure on you. Yet, for some reason, it's not classed as a main encounter. It makes no sense. I would have gladly put this encounter in the encounter select system. Like, it's definitely clear that the encounter select system needs work on this game. Not only does it negate a lot of encounters, it has bugs, it forces you to have upgrades you don't want. It's just really dumb that it works like that. Like, when it comes to the upgrade aspect, I wish there was an option for the encounter select system where you could disable upgrades. Like, for instance, if you pre-order the game, you have an option to disable the pre-order bonus that comes with your pre-order, which is interesting that it lets you do that, and I'm really glad that that's the case, but why isn't there anything like that with the encounter select system when it comes to the upgrades? And furthermore, the fact that it has to give you randomly generated loot each time you restart the encounter entirely is another reason why I don't like the encounter select. And it's absolutely hilarious that this game could have an inferior version of the encounter select system when Uncharted 4 had a significantly better version of the encounter select system. But I think that's only due to the nature of how the Uncharted games play, where, you know, you don't have the ability to carry weapons with you, you have to constantly swap between weapons, there aren't that many complex systems, like, for instance, with crafting, and that's why you don't notice any kind of issue with the encounter select system in Uncharted, because each weapon, they practically feel the same. And the only thing that's different about the encounters when you're doing the encounter select on Uncharted 4 is that you can start with power weapons. I mean, you can equip power weapons if you go to the settings menu. But other than that, the encounter select system, you're not getting screwed whatsoever by random loot. But right now we're in the encounter with Tommy, and that is a pretty cool effect. You might have noticed that when Tommy was off camera and he was aiming at me, you saw a bit of a light effect on the corner of the screen. That's a really nice bit of feedback. And this first part of the encounter is very simple because you're moving from cover to cover. You're going to have to be very fast. I recommend trying to dodge out of the covers just so you move a little bit faster. And I especially recommend you try to dive to prone during the animation. That way you get a lot more forward momentum. But you're essentially following this one path. And if you make any kind of deviation, Tommy will kill you pretty quickly. And then you get to the garage area and you have a lot of those infected coming towards you. But you can deal with most of them pretty easily by using the double-barreled shotgun, and you have a lot of ammo at this point. The double-barreled shotgun doesn't really serve any kind of use in the upcoming sections after this, because you're not going to be in a lot of close engagements with enemies, and being in close encounters with humans is pretty dangerous because they're very quick on the draw when it comes to shooting you. So it's best to handle the humans at a distance, and when it comes to the infected, the shotgun is definitely the best choice. You can also use some rounds from the semi-automatic rifle, and you might as well just use the flamethrower here if you have flamethrower ammo, because the flamethrower just doesn't really have a lot of utilities on this game. I mean, to be fair though, it has a lot more utilities on this game compared to The Last of Us Part 1. I never use the flamethrower in The Last of Us Part 1, because I never find the need to. There's never a sequence in The Last of Us Part 1 that demands the use of the flamethrower, whereas on this game, the flamethrower is really powerful against the Rat King, and it can be very useful for these infected coming up if you have ammo for it. And it can also be useful against any humans that happen to stumble upon you in the upcoming sections. But other than those sections, I haven't found any other use for the flamethrower on this game. But this is the end of this first part of Tommy's encounter, and we're now going to move on to the garage area. And for the garage area, you need to stay on the staircase. And you can't stand on the left-hand side of the staircase because somehow Tommy can still shoot you when you're on the wrong part of the staircase. Like, look at this right here. If you are not on this side of the staircase right here, and you're off to the left, he can shoot you. I have no idea how this is the case, because there's no physical way Tommy can see me from where he is right there. But whatever. At least Manny's guarding the bottom floor, so I can guard the top floor. And, ooh, that was very close. But I'm able to use the context-sensitive melee against this runner. And then the clicker's going to come in. And like I said before, I'm going to be using the shotgun and also the semi-automatic rifle. I do use some hunting pistol ammo here, though, because you do get hunting pistol ammo back in the upcoming sections. So you can probably use about 1 to 3 shots from your hunting pistol on this section, just to make it go by a little bit faster, and if any enemies are rushing towards you very quickly. But once you get over here, there is going to be another spawn of enemies because Tommy's luring them towards you. And this spawn works in phases. On the first phase, when you're not pushing up so much, you're gonna mainly get runners. But once you push up a little bit more, you'll get a clicker, a couple of runners, and a shambler. You don't have to deal with them, you can run past them if you have the right opening, but considering that Tommy is pretty good at shooting you whenever you're trying to escape from here, it's best to remove the random aspect of the enemies. But I'm currently out of ammo on my semi-automatic rifle, so I'm gonna have to use my hunting pistol and also my shotgun. I should be using the shotgun right now because the hunting pistol is really good at range, and it can be good at close range, but the range aspect is really where the hunting pistol shines. It's going to help so much for the upcoming sections with the humans, especially when the humans are at longer range. But right now, there's only one runner left, and Manny's going to take him out, thankfully. And as I push up towards the car that's right beyond the green van here, the spawn is going to trigger. And the shambler's gonna go on the left, and then the other enemies are gonna be on the right. I use the hunting pistol here because the enemies are at range, and I'm forced to use it because I don't want to get swarmed so easily. This is where I think the shotgun wouldn't really come in handy. But that one's dead, and then the hunting pistol to the head will kill clickers instantly. Although I have had moments where I've shot a clicker in the head with the hunting pistol, and it didn't instantly kill it. But that was only in the restaurant holdout section. But I think you can reliably use the hunting pistol against clickers and just shoot them in the head. But now's my chance to run. I'm not even going to bother with the shambler, and my shotgun didn't kill the clicker, but the clickers, they like to flail around a little bit after they get stunned, so you can use that to get past them. And I've gone the wrong way right now. You're supposed to go to the right, and there's an opening that allows you to get away from the infected. And Tommy is the only enemy that we have to deal with, but technically, you're not dealing with him. What you're trying to do is get Manny to push forward, and then he's going to try to take shots at Tommy, which will force Tommy to run away. You cannot shoot Tommy in this one. If you try to shoot Tommy, Tommy will kill you quickly, and you'll get screwed easily. I made that mistake several times in my blind playthrough, but don't repeat my mistake. Just let Manny do his thing, and obviously, don't rush too fast, because Tommy will kill you pretty quickly. Just wait for Manny to throw his pipe bomb over here, and then run, and then you gotta move very slowly. There's going to be a couple of moments where you need to go prone, and you're going to have to use some seats as cover. It's a little tricky, because you're having to keep watch over Tommy, and Tommy is very erratic in his movement at times. Or maybe he's not erratic, it's just probably... It felt like that when I was doing the section, and I had moments where it felt like Tommy was going to shoot me, but he didn't. But Manto over here, and then Manto over this spot over here, and then you need to go prone. You're going to be doing this for a bit of time. Just move very slowly. There's going to be a couple of moments where you have to use the shimmy mechanic to your advantage in order to move. And when it comes to the shimmy mechanic, you need to be crouched in order to move faster. If you're standing instead of crouching, you move slower through the shimmy spaces, which I find to be very interesting that it works like that. So if you're ever in any moment in a stealth encounter where you need to move through a shimmy space, you need to crouch so that you get through the shimmy space faster. But once you're over here, the encounter is practically done. So I'm just going to skip on ahead, and I'm just going to be picking up some ammo around this area. You'll know exactly where I'm going if you check out my no commentary version, which I'll leave a link in the description, even though I haven't really been doing it for my other videos because of the fact that YouTube doesn't prioritize my channel since I'm a very small channel. So I haven't found a lot of incentive to do so, but I think after I do this walkthrough, I will post the links to my no commentary versions in the descriptions of my commentated versions. But this is a stealth encounter, and as you'll see right here, the game is giving you a lot of the crossbow ammo, and you'll need the crossbow for the upcoming sections. Not for the stealth encounters, because these stealth encounters are very easy. You will not have to kill a single enemy when you're doing these stealth encounters. So this part right here, wait for that woman to turn around, and then go underneath this carriage here, and wait for this woman to do her corner searching animation, but don't move too fast, otherwise she'll spot you when she's doing the animation. Remain crouched. There's some hunting pistol ammo inside this building over here. And then you're going to need to mantle over some fencing and get underneath this carriage over here. And you need to wait for this woman to come back around so that she's going to be searching the building that you came in. And the moment she does the corner searching animation, that is your time to move. And you're going to have to remain prone here at all times because there is a sniper patrolling the main area. And she is so hard to get past unless you remain prone. And you go over to that incline right in front of you. But this woman is coming back right now, so I'm just going to wait for her to do her corner searching animation, which she's about to do right now. And now is my chance to move, and I'm going to head straight for that incline right there. And I'm not going to make any kind of deviations to the left because that sniper will most likely spot me. And I need to go to a particular cover point so that this woman who is patrolling on the ground right here will not see me. And I'm going to wait for her to go right past me when I'm in cover. And then I'm going to get inside of that log cabin. There is a guy to your left, so it's best you remain in a low profile so that he's less likely to spot you as you're making your way into this log cabin. And then there's another guy inside the log cabin, and he's going to most of the time have his back towards you, so you can easily maneuver around him by just moving between cover points. And once you're past him, the sequence is done. And it's a very simple stealth encounter. This section gave me a lot of trouble in my blind playthrough, and I was having to rely so much on the lure mechanic and also on the crossbow just to get rid of enemies, but you don't have to do any of that, thankfully. But I need to talk to you guys about a dumb comment someone left on one of my videos, and it was on one of my poor designs of RE3 Remake videos. So, this dude, he said I was encountering a lot of the issues I came across in Resident Evil 3 Remake because of the fact that I was being a hardcore player and I wanted to make every gaming experience as hard as possible, so therefore that led me to interpreting a lot of the designs as cheap. And he said I wouldn't be encountering any of these designs if I played like a normal person. Is this guy a moron? Does he really think I was going out of my way to encounter all of these issues? I was playing through Resident Evil 3 Remake like a normal person on Inferno difficulty, and these issues came to me. Is he really that stupid? And he says I'm whining about cheap design? You can't call it whining when you're stating objective flaws with the game. Do you have any idea the kind of issues Resident Evil 3 Remake has when it comes to phantom range, hitbox issues, a stupid dodge penalty system where you end up somehow doing an animation of just clipping into a wall when you're not even trying to dodge into the wall? Then you have the hyper armor issues and the moments where you don't get iframes during animations that have varying degrees of triggers, etc. How can you say you can only encounter those issues if you're playing like me? You encounter these issues regardless of what playstyle you play on. That has to be one of the most idiotic statements I have ever heard. And I don't know what this guy's playstyle is like, but he probably plays like crap. He probably plays on easy difficulty all the time, just spams unlockables, and he considers that to be like how a normal person would play. If that is the case, then it's no wonder why he's complaining about me, quote-unquote, whining about so-called cheap design. Apparently, in his mind, an unpolished game is a perfectly okay game that is completely serviceable. God, imagine if a doctor said that about the designs of an MRI, saying that this completely broken design of a machine is perfectly suitable for the public, and that's exactly what we should go with instead of the MRI machine that we have right now. Like, I've never heard anything like it, and it further reinforces my belief that 99% of gamers are idiots when this average guy, who happened to just stumble upon my video, decided to leave the kind of comment that he did. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy happened to look at the leaks for The Last of Us Part 2 and then said that the game is crap, and then says that the story has plot holes and all this kind of crap that people are producing. How does this game have plot holes? That's what I don't understand about these kind of people who try to build their negativity before the game releases, and that completely affects their criticism. It's absolutely unbelievable. But this beginning part of this stealth encounter, you can sprint the full way. You'll have to be jogging at a particular point because there's an enemy patrolling inside of the fields. And then you can start sprinting in the other part of the fields. Then you're going to need to go prone and just start hugging the outside edge to make sure that the enemies don't spot you too quickly. But do you see that enemy all the way off on the left right there? She can be in random locations. She can sometimes be right over here, or she can be right near the house. If she's over here, and she's walking all the way back to the house there, she can see you most of the time whenever you're trying to hug the outside edge of the arena, and you're near those trees. And the trees aren't the best kind of cover because they're very tiny trees, and at times it feels like the enemies can see you through the trees if they're standing in the right spots, and it feels like they can see you at some weird angles. So you're going to need to proceed with a bit of caution when it comes to hugging the outside edge. But once you get over to that fence over there, you have to wait for Yar to trigger the prompt, and that will be the end of this section. Now, moving on ahead, we have the brewery section. And on the first instance, I recommend going very slowly by just jogging. If you restart the encounter, you're free to dodge twice just so you can get a lot of forward momentum, and then you have to crouch, because some of the enemies are in some very awkward positions upon first starting this encounter. So this enemy is going to be all the way over there, and she can be a problem because she can spot you as you're trying to mantle up this mantle point. So you need to jog over here once you see the enemy on the left go past. Then you need to go prone the moment you mantle so that the enemy behind you doesn't see you. And now what you're going to have to do is swim to this area over here so that you can resurface for oxygen. And once your oxygen meter has refilled, you are free to go prone again, and you can just swim all the way to the doorway, and this is a very simple encounter, and you can get it done in about a minute, which is really cool. And like I mentioned before at the start of the video, I replayed this part of the chapter so that I can get very clean encounters, and I did every single encounter between the brewery and the theater on the first try. And we are about to get out of here, and now we're about to encounter one of the most unique encounters in the game, which is a fight between Seraphites and WLF. You're practically a third party in this case. This feels really cool. It reminds me of Modern Warfare 2 on the second to last mission, where you're playing as Soap and you're just going through that graveyard while the Americans and the Russians are fighting each other, and they're all your enemies, so you're practically a third party, which is so cool. And the way you want to influence the outcome of this fight is get rid of the wolves in the beginning so that the Seraphites can push forward. And then you need to clear out some of the Seraphites so that all the Seraphites that are on the right-hand side of the arena will be prioritized by the wolves. And that will cause the wolves on the left-hand side of the arena to push all the way to the right, and that gives you an opening to get inside of the diner and clear out any stragglers that happen to come your way in order to get on the horse. You might have to clear out a couple of wolves before you get inside the diner if they're getting in your way, and I do try to do that in this recording right here. So right now, the Seraphites are pushing up, and I'm going to sneak along the left-hand side of this arena. And I'm going to fire once at a wolf that's on the left, just so I have to deal with less wolves. I'm going to take my shots at the Seraphites over here, and then I'm going to push along the left-hand side, and it should work in your favor. The game gives you 2 crossbow bolts for this sequence. There is one crossbow bolt embedded in a car in the beginning, and then there's another crossbow bolt embedded in a truck just in front of me. So you can use those crossbow bolts in case you run out of ammo on your crossbow. And you definitely need crossbow bolts for this sequence, and also for the other encounter in Haven, as you'll be able to remain in the stealth profile while still taking out the enemies. For this sequence, I only recommend using the crossbow because the enemies move around a lot and they have a higher chance of spotting you. If you do get spotted, you need to fall back and wait for the enemies to start fighting each other again. But right now, I've killed one wolf and I've killed a Seraphite, and this is now causing the wolves to go all the way to the right, and this is giving me an opening because the wolves that were previously here have now moved on to the right. You still need to remain prone though, because there is a chance that there is an enemy taking cover behind one of these windows, and they can see you through the cover, which can be really annoying. The wolves that are holed up in this building right here are also moving around, so you'll need to be very careful when you decide to come in here. But I'm going to use my crossbow to take out any wolves that get in my way, and I'm going to need to aim for the head because the crossbow, while it is a very reliable tool compared to the bow and arrow, it still has the same problem where it can't instantly kill enemies unless it's a headshot. And I was very lucky that that guy didn't see me. And I'm able to pick up my arrow again, thankfully. And there aren't any wolves here, so this is the end of the sequence. Make sure you pick up the semi-automatic rifle ammo over here, and then pick up the 2 pistol bullets to your left, and then you can get on the horse. And now I'm about to demonstrate how you do this sequence no damage, once I actually pick up both of the bullets. So, this sequence gives the impression that every single enemy is shooting you, but that's actually not the case. There are only certain enemies that you have to deal with for this sequence, and you mainly have to shoot the enemies that have flashlights. And then, at a particular point in the second phase of this encounter, you'll have to deal with guys on horseback, and you can just shoot the horses twice, and they will go down. So, get rid of these 2 enemies right in front of you. You can stun that guy in the front, and then get rid of that guy. If you don't get rid of that second guy, he will grab onto you, and it doesn't do any damage, but you want to get rid of him very quickly. And then get rid of this guy in front of you. The enemies generally die in 1 to 2 shots, which is helpful. But, oh, and also, I'm not using my left analog stick during this one, but for that part where the fire is right in front of you, you need to move your left analog stick to the right in order to avoid it. For the most part, this whole entire horseback sequence, it's pretty much an on-rail section, so the game is taking control of the horse and steering for you. But for that one sequence where the fire was in front of you, you have to move to the right, and you don't have to worry about any other moment where you need to move the left analog stick. Now, this one right here, you need to be accurate with your shots. If you miss a single shot, you will take damage. That right there wasn't so bad. It's only on that first guy where you have to be very accurate with your shots. And then for the next 2 enemies, you have a bit of leniency with the amount of shots you're allowed to miss, but you still want to make sure you get rid of them very quickly. Don't worry about these enemies over here. They will not attack you. There's only one guy on the horseback that you have to worry about. And for some reason, he has increased health. Either that or his hitbox isn't active immediately, but it still gives you the hit markers for some reason. So, it'll take roughly 3 shots to get rid of this guy if you time your shots correctly. And I take him out before he has a chance to shoot me, and that is the end of this on-rail section. And now, we have this last encounter that involves guns, and it works exactly the same as the previous encounter, where the enemies are going to be fighting each other, and you are pretty much a third party in this sequence, so you're able to take shots at these enemies. But I highly recommend that, in the beginning, you let the enemies kill each other, because there seems to be a bit of scripting in how these enemies die in the beginning of this encounter. So, normally, these 2 wolves on the left will die, and then there's going to be a wolf on the ground that will push up into the house on the right, and he's going to get killed by the 2 Seraphites in that house. And then the 2 Seraphites are going to go over to that middle structure on the ground, and one of the Seraphites will die, but then the other one, the wolf on the left will kill one of the Seraphites, or you yourself have to kill one of the Seraphites. After that point, the enemies will no longer have the ability to kill each other. They'll just be firing at each other for quite a long time, unless you do something about it. And that is where you're going to have to get involved. And you can use every single weapon at your disposal, because the enemies, they don't move around this area a lot. They can't push back into this part of the area for some reason. It's very advantageous. So, you're free to use your crossbow bolts. I mean, I still recommend you use your crossbow bolts after these 2 Seraphites die, just to get rid of any enemies that are very close to you. And then, you just need to come back to that fence right in front of you, and just use all of your weapons to get rid of some of the enemies. And one thing you need to know about this sequence, as you push forward, you'll trigger spawns. So, you'll see moments where enemies seem to spawn out of the houses, and there will also be moments where they will spawn behind you. So, you need to be very careful of that when you're moving forward. And that's why you need to proceed with a bit of caution when it comes to this sequence. But right now, I'm going to use my crossbow bolts on this one wolf over here, the moment she reveals herself, and she is dead. I'm now going to use another crossbow bolt on this Seraphite to the right, and then after I've killed the Seraphite, I'm going to go back to that fence that I pointed out, and I'm going to take shots at the enemies. And he's dead, so now's my chance to move back. Something I should probably explain about being prone on this game. I don't know why it's taking me so long to explain this, but it's very important that you note this. Whenever you are prone, and you're doing animations such as reloading, you cannot move. It's the same when you're swapping weapons. You cannot reload while moving, and you cannot swap weapons while moving while you're prone. So, being prone on this game can be advantageous in certain situations, but when it comes to doing actions like that, it can be very dangerous. So, you probably need to re-engage a crouch position so that you can move around while you're doing those actions. The game will still continue those actions if you transition from a prone status to a crouching status, which is really good design. But bear that in mind whenever you are prone on this game. Just note that there are certain animations that you do while you're prone that can prevent you from moving. But I'm now going to take the time to shoot these enemies from this position with any weapon I have, Because I'm at such a long range, my weapons aren't going to be doing the best damage, which is a system you haven't seen demonstrated much in this game. This is the only part of the game where this system is more recognizable. It only seems to apply to the pistol, shotgun, and semi-automatic rifle. The bow and arrow and the crossbow don't seem to have this kind of damage mitigation system at range, so you don't have to worry about that. But you'll have to worry about this system for your other weapons, though. And I'm taking the time to pick up some semi-automatic rifle ammo in this building over here. And, by the way, if you're planning on using a loud weapon to take shots at the humans, try your best to go for headshots and get back into cover. You do not want to mess with the humans on this game. Just wait for them to resume fighting each other before engaging with them again. And there's some shotgun ammo, there's some additional ammo right there. And I've triggered another spawn. So, right now, there's a wolf inside of that building right in front of me, and then there is a Seraphite that has spawned, and he has a Molotov, and this is really the only time you see this guy with a Molotov. This guy is very bullcrap. He has the same kind of problem that the enemies in Uncharted 2 have, where even after you generate a last known position, the enemies on Uncharted 2 have the ability to omnisciently throw their grenades near you, but they still don't know where you are. And it's the same case with this guy, so you have to get rid of this guy very quickly if he is prioritizing you. It's very bullcrap, and that's why I decided to use a pipe bomb on that guy, just to make sure he doesn't get any opportunity to use his Molotov. I'm not too sure why this guy has this problem, because the Molotov guys in the first Last of Us didn't have this issue. The only issue you ever came across with the Molotov guys is the moments where they say they're about to throw their Molotov, but for some reason their Molotov doesn't come out. But this one, it's way worse. If they can just omnisciently throw their Molotov at your last known position without even knowing where you are. And right there, I picked up flamethrower fuel, and I got 30 flamethrower fuel from that, which just felt like a lot for survivor difficulty. So you'll notice, I checked the difficulty just then, and I am on survivor difficulty. So, I don't know why I got so much flamethrower ammo from that dead body, but that's just very weird. But it wouldn't have mattered anyway. I never get the opportunity to use the flamethrower anywhere else aside from the Rat King boss fight. So even if I got, say for instance, 100 flamethrower fuel from that corpse, I would have never had the opportunity to use it, and I don't even know why you would ever want to use the flamethrower against the humans when they can shoot you pretty quickly. I mean, the flamethrower is only really useful against infected enemies, it seems, because they at least don't have the ability to fire weapons. And if this game embraced the whole idea of the infected having the ability to use weapons, it would have been really bad. And it wouldn't have made any sense for the infected to use weapons, and it would just take away from the scary factor of the enemies. The scariest part about the enemy is the enemy itself, not the weapon it has in its hand. It's just a really dumb idea to give to an infected enemy like that. Like, I remember there was some early concept art for The Last of Us Part 1 where they originally considered the idea of infected having weapons, and I'm really glad they didn't go through with it. And instead they opted for really fast, really dangerous enemies that are still fair at the same time, and that is exactly the kind of enemy mentality that you need. Wish Resident Evil 2 Remake had that, but no, they opted for very lazy designs in that game. But I've triggered another spawn. There are enemies behind me, and then there are two guys fighting each other. The two guys fighting each other, the wolf always wins. I never see any moment where the Seraphite wins the engagement, but I guess it wouldn't make any sense for him to win the engagement considering that there are a bunch of wolves around him. So, it's very unfortunate for him, but when that wolf kills the Seraphite, he's gonna move up, and most likely he will be killed by the enemies across from me. And these guys can be very painful, so you gotta make sure you're dealing with them accordingly, because they're blocking your escape out of here. And once again, I am making sure I stay in cover after I fire my loud weapon, and I just wait for the enemies to start fighting each other. And this is really where the hunting pistol is going to come in handy if you run out of crossbow ammo. The hunting pistol will kill these enemies instantly, and you won't have to deal with them any longer than necessary, thankfully. There is some hunting pistol ammo back here, and there's also some semi-automatic rifle ammo back here. I believe that one wolf is still alive, so this will actually work in my favor, because while she's busy attacking the Seraphites, they're gonna stand up in order to shoot her, and this will give me an opening to shoot them with the hunting pistol, and it will kill them instantly, which is awesome. And I think if you get over to this spot over here, you trigger an additional spawn, because there's actually going to be a moment where there's going to be a wolf that will be the final enemy of this encounter, and he's coming after me. And I don't know where he comes from, but I imagine he spawns in when you get over to this side of the area, and he's going off to the left right now. I don't see any more Seraphites, so I believe this guy is last. And right now, he's looking for me, because he's looking my way, so I'm going to have to circle around him. And right now, he's lost me. So now's my chance to take him out. And I believe yeah, that's the end of the encounter, because the music changes and Lev is going to start moving up. And that right there is a pretty tricky encounter to do no damage, and it requires a lot of patience. You need to have knowledge of the enemy behavior, you need to have knowledge of the enemy spawns, and as long as you factor those two things together, you won't have any trouble with this sequence. But we're now going to transition over to the fight with the heavy Seraphite, and you have lost all of your weapons. So this is the last enemy that Abby has to deal with before she has to fight Ellie. And it's a pretty simple encounter, and this guy has access to the 2-hit combo immediately. And then when you go into the next phase where Abby cuts his face, he's going to have access to the 3-hit combo. So that's all you really need to know about this fight. It's very simple, and it's a nice change of pace from the shooting we've been doing. This is actually easier than the fight with the heavy female Seraphite, because you can actually mash this guy down and he doesn't do any kind of grab that does mandatory damage to you, which is really nice. But that's really the only other thing you need to note. But I'm just going to go ahead and explain Ellie's boss fight. It's coming up in a moment. So much like how Tommy's sniper section is meant to be parallel to the sniper section from The Last of Us Part 1, Ellie's boss fight is parallel to David's boss fight from the first Last of Us. And it works off a very similar mentality, only Ellie is way harder than David. But I've actually found really good methods for dealing with Ellie without having to deal with any kind of RNG or any kind of randomness that Ellie might display. And it's made Ellie's boss fight into a very short experience, a short but sweet encounter, which is really fun. It's the one encounter in this game that I replay the most when it comes to the encounter select, because every other encounter doesn't feel like they deserve a lot of replayability, but that one, it definitely does. And you are going to see the methods in play when I do Ellie's boss fight, because they are just incredible, and I think I'm the only one who has figured out these methods so far, or at least I was the very first one to figure them out, which is awesome. So the fight with Ellie is about to begin right now, and upon first starting this encounter, Ellie's going to fire at you twice, and then you can start running. She will not be able to hit you with this third shot. She's going to try to hide in the back area, but we're going to chase her down, and that's where the fight's actually going to begin. And how this first phase of the fight is going to play out is I'm going to sit behind cover in a prone position. Ellie is going to walk a couple of steps, and she's going to look in the direction of where I previously was. And after she does that, when she walks 3 steps, I'm going to dodge backwards. And I have to make sure the camera is facing in the right position, because when you press L1 and you do only that, it will default Abby to facing in the direction of the camera, and she will jump backwards. So I timed it just right, I turned my camera at the right moment, and I got behind Ellie. And now we are about to begin the second phase of the fight after we fall through the floor right here. And then Ellie is going to gain access to the shotgun. You cannot attack Ellie from the front. If you try attacking her from the front, she will counter you and she will instantly kill you. You have to attack her from behind. And right now, the game is going to prompt you to dodge, and you're going to dodge behind this crate right here. You need to move away from this crate a little bit, and then you need to start sprinting so you can get Ellie's attention. She's going to come over to where you are. You're going to generate a last one position, face the corner, and then dodge out. And then when you throw the bottle at close range, Ellie will never be able to dodge it, which is really good design, and it makes so much sense. There is no way any human being would have the reaction time necessary to dodge something at close range, or to shoot somebody coming out of a corner at a really fast speed. Like, you really feel equally matched with Ellie. Like, she has very similar capabilities to you, which just makes sense, given the amount of development each of these characters have gone through. But she shakes off our grab, and that is a mean right hook, which is honestly my favorite right hook animation ever in a game. Just the way that's animated and the way the motion blur makes it feel like it's coming in really fast, it really looks painful. But we're now on the third phase, and because Ellie injured our leg, we're not going to be able to maintain full sprint, but it doesn't matter, because the trick I'm about to show you removes all the RNG from this third phase. So grab that bottle, aim for this spot right here. It has to be behind this wall, and that will force Ellie to come very close to you. And when she gets close to you, as long as she doesn't see you, you will be able to use the bottle, and it will stun her, and that will be the end of this amazing boss fight. And we are going to be moving on to the final part of the game in the next video, so stay tuned for that. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.
She's pregnant. Good. Abby.